We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The Biden family money scandal, Mitt Romney demands the GOP field clears out, and the three branches of government are under threat. Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's show, we'll be discussing all of the aforementioned topics and a whole lot more. I'd like to say a quick thank you to our listeners out on KACT 1360 AM out of Andrews, Texas. Thank you for being here and being part of the team. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. Each day brings fresh revelation about alleged influence schemes connected to Hunter and now even Joe Biden. The pressure is on, and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has even mentioned the I word, impeachment, as a way to dig deeper into the allegations. So what does it all mean, and can the current president weather the storm? We're very lucky to have with us Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent and satirist, Mr. Graham J. Noble. Thanks for coming in, Graham.
Pleasure to be here, Mark.
So tell me, as we record on July 26, what's the lie of the land for Joe Biden right now?
Well, it appears more than anything else that he is. I don't know. You know, he's Teflon Joe, right? Isn't he? I mean, he's like the most untouchable president we've ever had. I think it's amazing that this all this evidence is piling up against him, and of course, nothing. You know, no crimes have yet to be proven, but the evidence that crimes have been committed is just right there. It's like it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and Joe Biden and the Democrats are just acting as if none of this exists, as if the entire thing is just a made-up fable by the Republicans. And so far, they appear to be mostly getting away with that. But that is, of course, because, you know, it's Joe Biden's administration. It's Joe Biden's Justice Department. It's Joe Biden's FBI. It's Joe Biden. I mean, you know, so it's quite incredible.
You know, actually, what you say there about it's something that's not even acknowledged that, you know, there's all this evidence piling up, and we should make clear, obviously, evidence is not proof, but there's all this evidence piling up, and it just seems to slip under the radar. The media is not paying attention to it, you know, it reminds me I'm a bit of a Lovecraft fan, and there's, you know, it's always a study of people going slowly insane while they're trying to operate in the world, and I got to thinking, am I going crazy? Does this evidence not exist? Is it some, what do they call it, eldritch pile of evidence or something that just doesn't exist on this plane where we're waiting for Cthulhu to sweep in and take it all away? But I know that a handful of let's call them the wilder GOP House members, I think we all know who we're talking about there. They've been pushing impeachment of Joe Biden since day one. Now, recently, just this week, we had House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He also floated the possibility, saying that an impeachment inquiry is the way to dig down through the layers of evidence. But I want to ask you, Graham, politically, does this help or hurt Joe Biden? Or is it both?
I don't see any way in which it helps him, because I think that, you know, there's a good contrast here between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The more legal problems that are thrown at Trump, and the more, you know, he was impeached twice, but of course acquitted twice in the Senate. But you know, since he left office, he's been just bombarded with these different legal inquiries and these criminal inquiries and these indictments, and each time one of those rears its head, he becomes more popular, and that is, I think, because the majority of Americans, and I think even a lot of Democrat voters, even though they would never admit it out loud, even a lot of Democrat voters believe, I think, that, you know, this is pure, in Trump's case, it is pure political persecution. You know, they are just going after him. They are determined to get him. They're determined to stop him, try to stop him running for president. They're determined even to throw him in prison. And that's just helping his case. But in Biden's case, there's not that, and that's because he's just not a popular guy. And I think most Democrats, but at this point, are thinking to themselves, it's kind of buyer's remorse. How did we end up with this guy? And now we're looking at this guy running for a second term. And so I think the push against Biden, and particularly the push to impeach him, in no way helps him whatsoever. No, I don't necessarily think it hurts him, because let's face it, the House could impeach him because the House is majority Republican. Even though I could see a bunch of Republicans in the House.
Oh yeah, there's at least
not impeaching him.
10.
But either way, he's not going to be. He's not going to be convicted in the Senate and removed from office. We know that. Because the Republicans certainly do not have the votes for that. So, but my view, Mark, is that at this point, I actually think it's the duty, almost you could say it's the moral duty of the Republicans at this point to launch an impeachment investigation, because this scandal is too massive to just ignore it, just brush it off. No, I think it's got to be done.
Yeah, I guess the benefit of an impeachment inquiry, whether that leads to an impeachment vote or not, is that it will force the evidence to be looked at. Subpoenas will be issued. I believe having an impeachment inquiry grants the power of subpoena for that, and then they can actually just look at everything. And obviously, no president wants to undergo this, but if he is entirely innocent, and that is entirely possible that he's entirely innocent. But at least that way they can put it to bed before the election comes around, the 2024 election comes around. But it occurs to me that impeachment has really just become another tool of the House. And can you imagine a situation in the future where a president doesn't get impeached when they lose control of the House? Because it seems to me that politics has been driven by such a wedge that the new normal is use every weapon at your disposal, and that will be the media attacks or impeachment. Can you see a time coming when, impeachment is the norm?
Well, I think the Democrats made it so, because both times that they impeached Donald Trump, it was over trivial matters. He got impeached for making a phone call to the president of Ukraine.
Let's please point out. Sorry to interrupt there, Graham, but this is President Volodymyr Zelensky, not Vladimir Zelensky, as Joe Biden likes to call him. But he said that the phone call was fine. There was nothing untoward in it. Now, apparently, they impeached him. Therefore, they did not believe that Volodymyr Zelensky was an honest man, and yet now, billions of dollars to Mr. Zelensky because he's an honest man all of a sudden.
And he's a hero all of a sudden. Yes, it is strange how that happens. But I do think the Democrats kind of normalized impeachment. But I just tend to think that, in the case of Joe Biden, it really is someone who's politically partisan is always going to say, well, it's different with this case. But it really is, because this is, if ever there was a case for impeachment against any president, it's this one. This is too big not to ignore. And also, I think, the thing is, if there's an impeachment inquiry, that actually forces this whole issue out into the open, because right now there are a whole bunch of Americans who perhaps only watch CNN and MSNBC and really have no idea what's going on with this alleged bribery and alleged funneling of money from foreign countries, pay to play. There's a lot of Americans, they don't even know this is going on, and so an impeachment inquiry will put that front and center in the on the stage, if you like.
There's a great quote by Walter Lippmann. It says, there can be no liberty for a community which lacks the means by which to detect lies. And I think that applies quite well. Graham J. Noble, thanks ever so much.
Thanks, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.